radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? How you doing? Today is, this is Fade to Black. Today's Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. What an amazing week this week on Fade to Black. Monday night, Patty Negri was here, right? The good witch, old world magic. Last night, James Van Prague was here. What a conversation last night with James, Life Beyond Death. That was a lot of fun. But how do you follow that up? We follow that up with tonight. Marc D'Antonio is back with us. I love Marc. He's always great when he's on the show. We're going to be talking about UFOs all night long. And you know what? We'll squeeze something else in. Maybe I'll find out what Marc's favorite band is. Tomorrow night, Cliff Dunning is here. Ancient Civilizations. Yeah, we're going to do a little Egypt and much more tomorrow night with Cliff Dunning. But tonight, it's about Marc D'Antonio. Yeah, he's an astronomer. All right. He's got SkyTour Live. He's got the SkyTour Radio show. He's been the lead investigator for MUFON since I was a kid. Yes, he is one of the most respected voices and researchers in our community. Video, imaging, anything else, it all goes through Marc, and then we listen to what he has to say. I want to talk about UFO Propulsion tonight and other breaking news stories that we have. I want to pick his brain through all of that because he's the voice of so many different TV shows. He's been on all of the networks. The easier thing is, what network hasn't he been on? Nick at Night, Nickelodeon. I don't think he's been on Nickelodeon. I don't know. Have you been slimed, Marc? Have you been slimed yet? He says no Nick at Night yet. So let's get Marc in here. It's always great when he's on the show. His links are below. You can head over to KGRA and check out his radio show too as well. And there you go. I want to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Marc D'Antonio. He's right there. Marc. Dude. Yeah, right. Well, you haven't been slimed yet, huh? No,
I haven't, and thank you for all those wonderful lies you're telling about me before. That's really cool. That's cool. No, thanks for having me back. I always love seeing you when we're out, and about and at different conferences and things. And of course, being on the show is unparalleled fun. You know that.
It's just, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to start here because I'm going to get into a couple of serious things, and then we'll have some fun for the rest of the show. But the first, because you have carved your way into a lot of respect, right? Okay. Don't be humble about it. People look up to you and look for your opinion, but that comes with a lot of pressure too as well, right? So do you ignore the pressure? Do you give a shit? You know what I mean? Do you protect? Do you think about what you say? Or
I'll tell you what I think. Okay. When it comes down to giving an opinion of what you see or trying to figure out a phenomenon, I let my science speak, but I have an open mind for the science I don't yet understand. And that's the other stuff that is out there, is that, calling in UFOs with your mind. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I'm not going to poo-poo it until I can prove it doesn't exist.
You haven't done it yet. That's why.
Yeah, and maybe that's true. And you yourself have even said that you've done that. And I'm not going to deny your experience. That's the whole thing.
Right.
I used to be more arrogant about all this stuff. I really was, and it was just so embarrassing to think of how I was, because I was not open-minded about stuff. But then as time moved on and some experiences I've had, I realized, holy cow, there's a lot of shit I don't understand.
Right.
There's a lot of phenomena I don't understand. So when people say we're going to go do a CE5, instead of going, oh, here we go again. No, I say, well, you know what? As long as you're not doing it like a grifter, if you're doing it with honest intent, then I can let that do the speak and let that speak. And if there's some real stuff there, I'll be the first one to admit it. I have no problem with that. So I'm a little more positive about the arena. You know what I mean? Now, you said I was doing MUFON. You're right. I was in MUFON for a long time.
A long time.
I started 2 years after it was formed as a kid, and I was a field investigator. I had that little field investigator card. I knew Walt Andrus when he had dark hair, okay, when he was still alive, okay. And then in 2008, they named me the chief photo and video analyst. And now where we've progressed is we have 2 photo analysis teams that I run. I have one that's overseas and I have one that's domestic. And we look at all the cases from all over the world. And we go through our independent analyses, and then we pool our analyses together. I won't let them work together because I don't think that's the right thing to do. Because then group speak takes over. And group think. You want to actually have individual think. And we've found that multiple people often, if not, usually come up with the same result. And that has to do with their training and their understanding of the phenomena. And that's really heartening to see as opposed to disheartening. So we don't have any people saying, okay, well, I guess I'll say it's that. They don't do that because they feel very strongly about what they're seeing. And I let them voice their opinion. I think it's important we all get together at the end after we've come up with our individual assessments, for instance. And this is just a MUFON thing. To then pool what we saw, and you have a conclusion, and they all seem to point to the same place. There might be one outlier going that way, okay? But we'll talk about it and see, hey, is that thing you were talking about? Let's investigate whether we're all washed up. And then we do, and we find, well, actually, no, we're all looking at the same thing. So, stuff like that. So, when we see the Ross Coulthards, and the other people out there that are putting out these things, okay, the government releases of all these different tranches of footage, we've gone through most of it. And honestly, yeah.
Well, what is your take? What is your take on these 4 releases? I've looked at all of the video, as I know that you have.
Yeah.
And I've done a few shows with more than a few shows with Gaia on each release, breaking everything down. I've read all. When I say all, I've read every document. I put my eyes on every document, read probably through, I'm not gonna exaggerate, 90%. Okay. And that's a lot of documents. So I have an opinion. I don't know if it matters. What's your take on the video side of these releases?
Sure. And first of all, your opinion, I'm not just blowing smoke, okay, because you're a friend of mine. I'm telling the truth. Okay. Your opinion also is really important, not because of your position, not because of your show, but because of how I know you think. And that's a very important aspect. Okay. If you were just a person that was out for the clicks and so forth, well, then I would do the show tongue in cheek and probably sit back a little and just let it go where it goes and then be happy it's over. But that's not how it is with you. So my take is this. First of all, having been in the world where, I've done a lot of work for the Navy, as you know, I've worked for the Navy for decades with my own business. It's a model making business. I work on models of concepts that won't be cutting steel for 30 years in the submarine arena. Everything below the water, that's where I live, Well, anyway, my take is the following. When we look at many of the videos, I see ordinary objects in many of these cases. However, what makes them classified, why they ended up in that classified bucket, now not all of them, of course, there are some that are truly fascinating, but the thing that put them in the classified bucket isn't the object itself, but the technology used to acquire the imagery is what put it in that classified bucket. And that's something people don't think about. So when years later they go back and they release video footage, they may not remember the provenance of that data, or they may just say, well, we got to just get these things out there. It literally isn't, one of these things where you have, 10 people in a committee deciding each and every second of a video. They just redact things like the HUD information, which of course makes them next to useless. Okay. But the HUD was probably a classified thing in that particular case. And we're not allowed to know which drone took the footage or which aircraft took the footage, because that would give away theater of operations, speed, altitude, and other locations, data, and so forth that they probably don't want to give away. But that put it in the classified bucket. So years later, they say, oh, here's a floaty thing. Let's release that. Some of that does happen, I'm sure. And I think a lot of the videos that I saw were, in fact, ordinary objects captured with an extraordinary technology.
Did any of the videos stick out for you, though, where it was a head scratcher?
Yeah, there were a few. I mean, there were a few. Now, a number of the videos show objects moving rapidly through the frame. And that could be a small thing up close or a large thing far away, can it? And so without the HUD information, we really can't make a determination, can we? We have to say, well, that jury's still out, because all the black horizontal lines are the HUD information that's been redacted from the video that we're not allowed to see. I mean, if we saw that, or if it was tracking and you saw a little white square around it as it's moving, that would give us the target information, but we didn't get any of that stuff, So as some of them look intriguing, but unfortunately, there's nothing we can say. And I know there was a big case of like the chandelier UFO, if you remember. And I think I know what that was, and it's not going to make a certain person very happy to know, but I mean, he's probably heard me say it already. But in some of the releases, the technology used to acquire the imagery would add these artifacts around the object and cause them to look like it's got all kinds of lines sticking out of it with all kinds of secondary circles and things. And in one case, it's literally 100% certainty that it was literally a parachute flare. And as this thing is falling, this beautiful chandelier UFO, all of a sudden a parachute comes into the view and then stays a while and then goes out and then it comes back in again. So you're looking at a parachute flare taken from down below at an oblique angle, and then you actually see the parachute come in and then it goes away. So you compare that, for instance, and we do a lot of comparison. You compare that object to the chandelier, which is an extreme close-up of one thing. So you're looking at a tiny little piece of an overall frame. You're not allowed to see the whole frame. And the question I asked at the time when that first came out was, why can't we see the whole frame? Now we may have the answer, because you would then see the smoke trail, as we did with this one, and you might see a parachute, as we did with this one. So it's an example. See, so use multiple images. I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm not saying that there's not real footage. There undoubtedly is. I mean, you're well aware of my experience on the submarine that time, which we saw something move through at several hundred miles an hour. And I confirmed that with one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff when I had to do a project for them a couple of years later. And it blew me away. I swear it was missing time driving home from Washington back to Connecticut. It's a 6-hour drive, but it felt like half an hour, because I was thinking about this the whole way, and it must have been on autopilot, because when I got home, I was like, I'm home. How'd that happen? But I was thinking about these things. So clearly there's a lot of phenomena out there. It's just that our methodology for capturing them is not sufficient to capture them. And, I think we may know why. And if we get to UFO propulsion, we may talk about some of that.
And we will. There was a few videos that definitely, the majority of them Okay. All right. Parallax and moving backgrounds and things on stationary objects where it, okay, so there's a lot of that. And most people don't understand what they're looking at. That's fine. But there was one video that did stick out for me. I fly a lot. Okay. I mean, I fly way too much.
Yes.
Once a week. Once a week. And so
that's right.
There was one video of two jumbo jets flying. The video's from inside. I'm assuming this is like a military refueling kind of mission. Anyway, because it's a military video. But so it was two planes flying next to each other.
Okay.
All right. And then in between the two planes. Now, if you're a plane like that at altitude, 35,000 feet, you're doing 350, 400 miles an hour, right? Okay. Just, you're not doing 700. You could if you're going across the Atlantic and you got a tailwind. But, okay, so you can assume a couple of things. 350 miles an hour, maybe 400. In between the two jets comes this object and passes him and goes out of frame. Now, WTF, right? That's not, some parallax camera station. No, this thing flew in between the two planes and then went out of view. Wasn't very big, but what is flying at 35,000? It's not a drone. I can tell you that. What is that? That was pretty interesting for me. There wasn't anything to just go down the check marks and go, okay, it's this. No, that was something that, I don't know. That was a pretty good video.
Let me ask you a question. In that video, do you remember the size of the object versus the size of the other
right
plane?
I would, if I was going to make a guess, I would say
In the frame.
5 to 8 foot sphere.
Okay, but it was in the same frame. You don't know how far away it was, and when it was,
the other plane. Okay, the other plane was close.
Okay.
So these two planes were in formation. I would say the distance between the planes was hundreds of feet. Okay,
Right.
not a quarter mile. The jet that's out there is there. It's there.
This was a refueler?
It was an Air Force
Like a
jumbo.
KC-130?
It was
tail boom?
I don't remember a tail boom. I
Okay.
don't remember that, but military markings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but flew right in between. You got a really good idea of distance because you see it against the other plane. It's traveling twice as fast as these two jets. So it just right past. So yeah, that was a solid video. That was a real one.
Well,
So you didn't see that one.
that's one I didn't see, actually. Of course, you'd pick that one. But I will ask you this, though. If you've got two planes flying in one direction, right, and you have another plane, they're going this way, and you say another plane comes in this way and flies by, it's going to look like it's going by twice as fast. Because
theory of relativity. Yeah, theory of relativity,
relative,
right there.
Relative motion. But and I'm not saying that's what you saw at all. I'm not trying to dismiss it or anything. But all I'm trying to suggest is maybe there is something there that can be examined to see. Because if there was traffic in the sky, we can get that information. And that's the thing. That's
Yeah. Right,
see what I mean?
right. So I
And if
hope
we
you
don't get
understand
any-
what I'm saying. It's
Yes.
two planes, two jets flying in formation.
Yep.
And then while this is going on, this object goes in between them and keeps going in the same direction.
So was it going the same direction?
Yes. Yes,
Oh,
it
okay. See, I
passed them.
thought they
Yeah.
were going the opposite direction.
No,
Okay.
opposite direction. I don't give a shit. That's a garbage video. No.
Right.
Same direction. Yep.
Well, that sounds more interesting. Now, was this in the fourth?
It was. I'm telling you, man, it's right up your alley. I thought you would have had an opinion.
That had to be the fourth release, then, didn't it?
No, that was the second or third release.
Okay, I don't know how I missed that one because we went through almost everything. Wow.
I wonder. Hold on. I might actually have it. Hang on. Let me go to my.
The kind of guy you are. I'm sure you do.
Let's see. Yeah, let me go to my government files.
Jimmy, come on.
UFO. Let's see. What did I call that? Okay, here we go. Is it in here? No. Oh, come on, man. Don't do this, Jimmy. Not live on the air. I have my government. I just can't think of what I called that folder. Okay. Well, while I'm looking for this, my other question with this, why do you think these releases are actually happening? With now a rhythm to it, like every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing I've noticed, and one of the things that I feel strongly is that, and for the same reason, because I've talked to a lot of servicemen and mentioned in particular submariners, guys on submarines, they all see these underwater objects that are moving fast many times. I say they all. Well, the engine room guys and the guys operating the con don't see it. Only the sonar officer sees this, and the executive officer, and then of course the captain. So only that echelon will see these things, and so they're very common, yet they're rare that more than a couple people at a time will see it. So why the release? Well, part of the problem, or I should say part of the reasoning, goes back to why the government took over the whole UFO arena to begin with and relabeled things and rebranded it a UAP. Right? Let's just talk about that for a moment. When you think of UFO and you have a news story about UFOs, the anchors are always laughing and they have a blow up alien sitting on the desk when they do that little human interest story. You talk about UAP though, and from the government, now it's a different story. I haven't seen one green blow up alien on a UAP story by anybody. Okay. UFO stories continue to produce UFOs with little green aliens in them. Okay. So the branding was done on purpose. Now, why would they take the time to brand UFO into UAP? The reason is because there is not just a groundswell of movement. They would keep it quiet. They'd keep it very quiet, and they'd continue to lie through their teeth. But why can't they? The reason they can't is because our technology is actually getting better. And it's not going to be long. In fact, it's already sort of happening now before ordinary people, okay, are going to be able to capture these things, and they're going to have some explaining to do. So explain me, Lucy, what's these thing in the sky? Okay. And this video tantamount proof that they're here. And then the government will have egg on their face. So what they're doing, I think, is they're releasing this stuff slow but sure. I think they don't understand fully what they're releasing. And the people doing the release don't know one way or the other whether it's a UFO. To them, a balloon could be a UFO, and they don't even think twice. And that muddies the water. And the problem with that is that, with muddy water, people then accuse the government of more lying and more deception and all that. And undoubtedly, some of that will probably be true. But I do think that they're releasing now because of the fact that they know that sooner or later technology, universities, and other organizations that can afford this technology are going to be the first to the finish line with showing that the definitive proof of UFOs. And the government doesn't want to miss out on that because they want to control it. And that's really what it's about. If the first person to talk about it becomes the go-to person, then they can control all the information. And that's kind of what they're doing in my view.
Well, so if the public gets what they want and they get a video that is what you're speaking about, which we all want to see,
Yeah.
well, then that does open the door, doesn't it, to okay, how long have you known? How long has this been going on?
Yeah.
And right now, these videos and the releases that have been coming out limit all of that in scope, don't they?
It does, but it also gives the average person the feeling that the government is willing to get to the bottom of it too. And I had a case where I was working on a project. At the time it was classified, but it was something that's now on Wikipedia, and all the viewers can go look it up. It's called Project Cormorant, like the bird, Cormorant, and it shows as a canceled project, tongue-in-cheek canceled. What it was a device which would come out of a missile tube of a sub, come to the surface, spread its wings, fly like the flying sub from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, go do a mission, come back, land on the water, close up its wings, go back down, get into the missile tube automatically, and go home. No American lives put in any danger, just this reconnaissance vehicle. So that was seen flying over a deep water lake in the United States. And it just so happened that the north end of that lake was a resort. At the south end of that lake was this Navy station. All right. And there was stuff on the lake floor. I know because I built a full 3D model of it for the Navy. I built several.
Is this Lake Michigan?
No, Lake Ponderay in
Okay, Lake
Bayview, Idaho.
Ponderay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 1,160 feet to the mud at the Navy end of the lake, deep lake. Well, anyway, they do sonar testing there, and they were testing what we called the birdie at the time, and the birdie was seen flying by people at the north end of the lake in the resort. And they took pictures of it by getting in their cars, driving down to the south end of the lake. They didn't go through any gates, but this thing was in the air, so they could capture it from the shoreline, and they did. And guess who got the pictures? Now I'm on both sides of the fence, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on that project. I'm also the chief photo and video analyst. So to be fair, I chose the chief photo and video analyst side. Okay. I wanted to be that rather than, anything else. So I called the program office down in Washington and I said, hey, I'm getting submitted photos of the birdie in the sky. And this leads to the point I'm about to make about all this release. And the guy said, yeah, well, they think they're UFOs. And he laughs. Ha ha. He goes, that's good. Let them think that. I go, no. See, that doesn't work. I'll tell you why. If they think they're UFOs, you know what's going to happen next? Bob is going to go back to his friends and say, guys, there's a UFO flying at the south end of the lake, and 10 of them are going to pack into cars, maybe more, and go down. Those 10 are going to see it, take pictures, and go back and get 10 more people. And I kept laying it on thick, and I said, sooner or later, someone's going to take a picture of the birdie doing something you don't want them to see. It's really that simple. So all I need from you is a statement that this is one of ours. It's a test of a flight system. That's all you got to say, and that'll be fine. And there was a pause, and he went, "Okay, I'll send you an email." I said, "Thank you very much." And that's the last time I talked to him. And I got the email. I distributed it, and guess what? Everybody went home. No longer interested. It's one of ours. So obviously, this was a case where the government was trying to use the UFO possibility to their advantage, but it was going to backfire spectacularly if they did. And that would have been an example of the backfire if all these people came down and started photographing it like that.
Well,
so,
the other thing, you said something that was great. People don't know what they're releasing on the government side. And I agree with that. And I've made that statement too as well, because they haven't released anything on Roswell, but they did on all four, heavily centric on the last three releases. were on the green fireballs at Los Alamos. Now, the green fireballs at Los Alamos happened throughout the last part of 1946, going into 1947 and through 1948, obviously right around Roswell, Kenneth Arnold, the Rhodes photographs out of Phoenix, right? All of those were in July of 1947. Well, the green fireball case was not one sighting. It wasn't one event. They had 300 in the releases, 300 military reports over a 1.5 year period of these green fireballs. Okay. Doing all kinds of crazy things. And the study that went behind that, and all the scientists that were coming in, and the Air Force looking at this, they installed 3 radar stations so they could triangulate and photograph and try to figure out and pinpoint all of these locations. And that, I think that in of itself, without talking about Roswell or anything, to focus on that green fireball case brought attention to what the government was researching at one of the most important places. It was Los Alamos, man. It's, you know what I mean? It's Albuquerque. It was nuts, and it wasn't just one sighting, and it went on for one of the reports that is in release number 2, maybe release number 3, is a table of each report, the date, the type of craft, the time, the witnesses, the color, right? So it's a table. 290 individual cases in New Mexico. And so you have to ask yourself, why? One basic question. Why that area on all of planet Earth for a 1.5 years, not one night, for a 1.5 years? Why just over that area? There weren't green fireballs reported anywhere else in the world like that. So you can take meteors off of the table, right? You can take.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's consider meteors for a second. And first of all,
they tried. They never found fragments. They never.
No. And not only that, they were basically traveling on mostly horizontal paths. They didn't do any downward trajectories. Okay. They were much slower than typical meteors. And at a low estimated altitude, that's kind of important too, because meteors are burning up at 90 miles or more. Another one that's characteristically weird is there were no dust trails, no sparks, no
noise.
No bolide bang like I've heard many thousands of times. Okay, there were no sparks or trails, no smoke, no impact debris. So that's kind of interesting. And then another thing that happened was they were also seen to basically turn on and off sharply. I mean, things like bing, bing, they'd go off, they go on, almost like turning on a light. So that's very different from an astronomical bolide, as we call them, BOLIDE. And so that tells me something. Now, the green color, we see that in meteors. That's the only thing that's the same. Okay, meteors are often a green color in certain cases. Iron will do that, and so forth. We're also seeing an aurora being made in the upper atmosphere, and that'll be green. Sometimes you see a trail that's green. The Leonids are good for that. Okay, I think it's November. So there's a lot going on that says this wasn't necessarily a bolide, meaning a meteorite that's coming in horizontal and blowing up in the sky, like Chelyabinsk.
Yeah, well, every astrophysicist and astronomer that they brought in, as they looked at the data and talked to the witnesses, and then a few of them saw these for themselves too as well. They all said, I mean, without question, all said the same thing. Not natural. No. And they were watching these things take turns and change speeds. When I say turns, in some cases, changing direction altogether, a J turn.
Yeah. I agree with that. Actually, I wanted to mention something about that. One of the tenets of UAP is to find one that's making non-ballistic motion. Okay. So when you look at something moving through the sky, if it's moving in a way that physics predicts, that's important. Well, guess what? On my all-sky camera at our Sonoran Desert Telescope, I captured non-ballistic motion of a very, very high altitude single dot object moving through like this speed in the sky. And then all of a sudden, it went and made a 40-degree change of angle, and a second one was joining it, and you saw them go together. They turned together. These were not aircraft, because aircraft, even the military aircraft, they don't have just a single light on. Okay, they either have their recognition lights on, which are multiple lights on the fuselage, or they'll have something else going on, like the navigation lights, and of course the wingtip strobes. But they can run without them. They can do that. They can run full blackout.
And sometimes they turn on and off their landing lights.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really strange. And I've got this. Now, the reason why I felt this was at satellite altitude is because the sun had set about 20 minutes earlier. And on the western horizon where the sun set, let's say it's over there, okay, where you are. Okay. Mm-hmm. As this thing approached in the frame, every single frame, it got brighter and brighter and brighter. When it was being illuminated brightly by the sun, it was extremely bright. As it came into the view, it started to fade. And by the time it reached the Earth's terminator, which was right about there, it began to fade out. And just at that time, the second one, and it turned and sharply moved to one side. I have this on video. I have this video. When I was on the Y-Files, I showed them that, and they showed it there too. I didn't know we were going to talk about it, or you would have already had this video from me. Sorry.
Not the first time we've done that on the show, Mark.
I know.
Let me share with you what I saw. What's today? Today's Wednesday.
29th.
Okay. Yeah. I think it was last Thursday. So 6 days ago. It wasn't this way. Anyway. So I'm done with the show, and I do the same thing every night, shut the studio down, and I go outside, fresh air, and I look at the stars and look at the moon. That's what I do. Smoke a heater,
who would,
and wind down. So I walk out in the front of my house, and something made me look up. Now, I'm not saying it's some CE5 conscious connection, but something just made me look in that direction. I was going to look up anyway, but I looked at the brightest star in the sky, and it's like right here at my 11 o'clock, maybe 10 degrees down. It's like right there. And underneath the star is this frigging dark blue, not bright blue, dark bluish, dark forest green, if you can imagine that. In other words, not tremendously bright. Anyway, with a halo around it. And it's low, and it's right below that star. And it's going south. It's going west, southwest at an angle. Anyway, and it's hauling balls. And I said out loud, got my cigarette, well, look at you. Right? So I'm watching it, and then I saw two planes that were up, Burbank Airport's over here, I'm in traffic, that it looked like to me that this object was at about the altitude of the two planes I was looking at. So the reason why I brought this up, this wasn't satellite altitude. This was low. And then I only saw it for about 5 seconds. Pretty good size too, by the way. I could see the halo. I could see the inner dimly lit glow. It was navy blue, not bright blue, not glowing, but navy bluish, forest green colored with the halo around it. And then I only saw it for about 5 seconds, and it's hauling Okay, it's moving, and it went into the clouds. And I tried to follow it, but from that point forward, it was just heavy clouds, and it was gone. But I stepped back and went, that was a Class A sighting. I don't know what that is. Oh, by the way, the other reason why I brought this up, is you brought up navigation lights.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at two planes, right, flying in different directions, right? One going to Burbank, one's going to San Francisco.
Yeah.
With lit up, right? You know, with all their light. No, like a dark navy blue with a halo. Yeah. So when somebody describes something like that to you, by the way, my phone was in my garage. I thought about going. Yeah, I know. I thought about going to grab it, but it ducked behind the clouds and it was over. I only saw it for 5 seconds.
Wow.
So what do you make of that kind of sighting like that? If I was going to make a guess at altitude, 5,000 feet. I'd say something in 10,000 tops.
In all likelihood, any single sighting estimate of altitude, unless you can see a shape, is going to be grossly wrong. You know how it is. We're very, very poor at that. We didn't evolve that kind of binocular vision. Our eyes would have to be much further apart. We'd have to be like pretty deformed to have eyes way out, 15 feet from each other to actually triangulate a distance.
Sure. And you know a lot about eyes. You know more about eyes than anybody should. But here's the thing. It was low enough that I saw detail. Okay? This wasn't like struggling to look at a star and focus on a star. No. It was right there. It was like right there. Probably the size of maybe a dime with the halo. A dime at arm's length. It was about that.
Now, it was moving?
Oh, yeah. It was hauling. It was hauling ass.
Now, could it have been a Vandenberg launch?
No. I see those. All the time.
Okay. And if it was really moving fast, and you're sure it was actually moving, and there was a star that was stationary.
Yeah. Yep. I watched it pass below the star.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they actually.
No vapor trail, no Vandenberg magic, none of that. No, I see Vandenberg. If I face due west, Vandenberg launches over the house across the street from me. So when they time a launch, I just go out in the front yard, man.
I know, it's fun. I was thinking more of a sounding rocket. I wonder if it was a sounding rocket, but knowing the date and time, we can certainly find out if there are any sounding rocket launches from Vandenberg, because what they do is when they get up into the upper atmosphere, they release a compound which causes glows, just like you're talking about, with halos, just like you're talking about. I've seen them. I reported one in the early days of doing this when I thought I was seeing a UFO. Okay. And I quickly found out that it was a Wallops Island, Virginia launch, and I'm in Connecticut. We could see it from here, low to the horizon in the south.
Okay, take your pen out. Take your pen out.
My pen.
Take your pen out, and let's nail this.
We don't.
It was on the 23rd at 9:15 p.m.
Okay, 23rd at 9:15 p.m. And I'm trying to.
Oh, you don't have to do it now, or you can. You could. We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes. You can do it during the break.
Okay, I'll grab my I can't see my phone. I don't know where it went.
I just bragged about your eyesight.
Well, no, I know, but look at the lighting.
So, yeah, I see enough stuff. I live here in Palmdale. I see stuff every single day. This was, I'm telling you, for me, this was awesome. I
would say so. I would say so. That we need to get that date nailed down. That what you saw. I want once again, give me that date and time, please.
The 23rd, Thursday, 9:15 p.m.
July.
Yeah, last week. And traveling, like I said, west southwest.
west to the southwest?
Yeah, it was coming from northwest to the southwest.
Okay, northwest to southwest.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can have some resolution after the break on this, or not.
Don't squash my mellow, man.
I'm not going to squash anything. I'm not
Don't squash my mellow, man.
I adore these kinds of things. Are you kidding me? I live for this stuff.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. Now, my friend Amy, Amy Christine, and she's a neighbor of mine, her and Romeo, and they live about 5 miles from me to the south.
Okay.
And we went out to dinner the next night on Friday, and she saw it too. But she said when she saw it, it was closer to 10 o'clock, described it exactly as but she said it wasn't moving.
Really?
And I said, that's impossible. She goes, Jimmy, it was over your house, and I was out walking my dog, and it was dark blue with the halo, and we just sat and looked at it for a while. I said, well, it was going in the direction to your house, but this thing was hauling. I have no judgment on speed, but I'm looking at the other aircraft in the sky, right? Just, doing whatever jets do.
How far away was she from you?
About 5 miles. And she saw it at 10 o'clock. I saw it at 9:15.
That could have been a different one.
Yeah, could have been. Been.
Okay.
She described it identical, though, which is a very, we have heard all kinds of things, and so have you. This was like dark blue.
Almost weird to look at, right? Almost like it was fuzzy, but you could almost see
No, it was defined. So
it wasn't a bright light, but kind of a dull glow localized in the sky.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to say this to try and poo-poo it, but that is exactly what these barium sounding rocket glows look like. But nevertheless, two things can be true at once.
Well, isn't there an engine on that rocket?
Oh,
Wouldn't there be a vapor trail?
No, not. Sometimes yes. No, you're right. Sometimes yes, but not always. Okay. You may not see a plume at all.
It was also low. Dude. It was low.
Well, it could have been far away, looking low because it was far away. The Earth is curved, so if they were to set it off, let's say they took off from here, or let's say here, but then it went up and it arced out, say to C or whatever. Okay, then they let it go, boom. Okay, out there from your position back here, that could be low on your horizon, so it might look low to your horizon. Mine was only about 15 degrees above the horizon, but it was far up above Wallops Island, Virginia. But Vandenberg's not that far from you, really.
No, it's 4-hour drive on the coast.
Yeah, so it's not really that far. So a rocket launch would.
But I see those all the time, and it didn't come from the direction of Vandenberg. It was at a totally different thing. Vandenberg is, if I'm looking straight at Vandenberg, it's almost like due west from me. This is coming from the north and like west, northwest, however you say it, west, northwest to southwest at an angle this way. Vandenberg is just straight out.
I got you.
So,
well, hey,
yeah. I'm just saying for me, I see stuff out here every single night. You know what I saw? Yesterday I was out on my Harley, which I see this about once a week, but I saw it yesterday. It never gets old. U2 flew right over me and landed.
Really?
Yeah. And it's about once a week.
They're based out there.
Yeah. It's right. It's a mile from my house.
Yeah.
Air Force Plant 42, cool. Where they work on those. They fly so slow, and they got such a unique sound to it. It's a very low, deep, because I think the engines are always an idle, like idle, because you can't get that plane on the ground.
It doesn't want to land.
Yeah, it doesn't want to land.
It floats. Yeah.
They really, you could tell, man. They're struggling with. Anyway, so just right over me, so slow, and you just get to just take it all in and look at it. And so even for me, I pulled over and just sat and watched it. Just one. So I see stuff every day. This was not the stuff that I see every day. It was pretty cool.
No, it sounds like it was something very cool. So I'm going to
look at it during the break.
I am. I'm going to look at it during the break. I'm also going to send you that UFO video.
Yeah, send that to me.
It's 41 megs, so I have to send it through WeTransfer. So you're going to get a WeTransfer link.
Okay.
So
via email, right? Email.
That's right. I'm going to send it to your email. You're going to get the WeTransfer link in your email.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to show it in the second half if you wish.
Yeah, totally cool. Totally cool.
Yeah.
Well, now,
see it.
Were you ever, and then we'll pick this up after the break, were you ever just a nuts and bolts and rivets flying saucer dude at one point? Were you ever that guy? Like when you were a kid?
Yeah, of course. Of course. Had no idea what these things were, I had no idea where they come from. I had missing time at age 9 and became afraid of the sky after that. And so to overcome that, maybe it was unconscious, but I asked my parents to buy me a telescope. And so I looked at the moon for the first time and fell in love. I said, oh my gosh, these telescope things are the coolest thing on earth. So I kept with it. And then about half a year later, I actually made a space station plan and sent it to NASA.
We all did that. I did that.
I got a response from one of the scientists at NASA, and he sent me back a box full of mission patches, model kits, books, everything. And I had my mom label it Space Box for me, so I always knew where my space box was. And that scientist I contacted after literally 45 years later. Okay. And his position at that point was no longer with NASA, but he was the chief engineer at JPL, and his name was Gentry Lee.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No.
And I asked
him,
have
you seen Starman, his documentary?
I have not, but I want to. I was at Alien Con for A&E for something we did for Proof Is Out There, which is the series I'm in, and I wanted to go see Gentry Lee at JPL. I didn't have a car, so I was trying.
He's 85 years old.
Yes.
Still at JPL. How crazy is that?
He's gonna expire there.
Yes, he wants to.
Yeah. I mean, you look at all the outer space robotic missions, and that's the man that is in charge of those. He wrote me back this beautiful letter when I was a kid. And
what year was that?
Oh gosh, that had to be 1969, 1970.
See, that was Viking. He was knee deep in Viking at that point.
He was, and he took the time to take this 9-year-old kid and put him on a path to become an astronomer.
How cool is that?
That's why I'm an astronomer.
And he's such a cool. You know what though? And let me say this about Gentry. Today, I just have, like you, the most immense amount of respect. That guy has done things.
Yeah.
But I didn't like his stuff with Arthur C. Clarke. I didn't dig it. I didn't like the change that Gentry added to it. So I had this axe to grind with Gentry Lee, man, that he ruined Arthur C. Clarke. And then as I got to see interviews with him and how he spoke and his passion, that was the universe slapping me upside the head for being a dick and being arrogant.
No, I don't know about that.
Well, you know what I'm saying. His documentary Starman came out last year. It's brand new. Just go and check it out. Starman. Gentry
I will.
Yeah, really good.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. No, because his whole thing and what he did for me was pivotal. It made me, first of all, I had to do something while I was in the house, afraid to go outside. both at night and at day. I felt like something was watching me all the time after that missing time, and because it happened at an outdoor school event. No one saw me, and for 4 hours, I wasn't there. And I got off the bus with my bag lunch at this little pond in Torrington, Connecticut. The next thing you know, I'm getting on my bus with my bag lunch. And all the kids are jumping around. And I said, when are we going to go to the pond? Like, we've been there all day, you jerk. Where were you? Slap, pow. You know how kids are. And I got home. I put my lunch in the counter. And my mother said, why didn't you eat your lunch? I said, I don't know. Well, go play. I'll call you for dinner. As soon as I got outside, I fell on the ground and I started having seizures. And I had to be transported to the hospital in an ambulance. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it never, ever happened again. It was like a one-off. But it was something related to that day, something that happened that I lost 4 hours. I don't know what it was. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, after that, I was afraid to go outside at night. I would hide from the sky and hide from the stars. I know that sounds stupid, but that's what I did. And so I wanted to overcome it. So this happened during the day. So I figured if I go out at night, maybe that's safer. And so I asked my parents for a telescope, and then I looked at the stars and the sky and everything. And slowly my fear of the sky went away. And I began to think, this stuff is so cool. I want to learn more about that thing called the moon. And those are the craters. I know that. There's got to be more to them. I got to learn about this. And I look at the stars and I'd say, and I literally was saying this out loud to myself, there's got to be people living around those stars. I was saying that, and it's like, my parents are like, you have an overactive imagination. And I won't deny that, but I will say that was freaky to me because I don't remember ever coalescing in my brain that thought in all the years before that.
Let me ask you a personal question. I have a manual Celestron. I'm looking at it now. It's a nice telescope, fully manual. Okay. I've had my eyes on a couple. Should I just get a fully computerized, motorized Celestron?
Yeah.
Oh, we lost Marc. Look at the face that Marc is giving us right now. Okay, we're going to take a break. We're up against the break. Marc, if you can hear me, reset your stuff. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Marc D'Antonio is with us. He has sent me a video. We're going to get to that. He's also going to look at the sighting that I had last Thursday night at 9:15 p.m. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Watch Into the Vortex on Guy TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Guy.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's not called X, but who cares? Go to JimmyChurchRadio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com.
All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Marc D'Antonio. Waiting for Marc to come back in. He is sending me a video that we're going to watch here of this object. That's pretty interesting. That took, he said, about a 40-degree turn. And he's also looking at the data of Thursday night. It was the 13th or the 23rd, the 23rd, last Thursday, 6 days ago. And again, I know that I just described this. I want everybody to understand my take on this. It was way cool. Now, here in Palmdale, day or night, they're test flying and launching and flying stuff all day long, see stuff. And some of it's really, this was not taking off from Skunk Works, which is behind me from the direction I was in. But what I did find very, very interesting. Okay. Yeah, Marc, your video's not on.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I don't get it. What's going on, man? Can you hear me okay, though?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why this stopped. I'm just, I don't know what happened.
Okay, you just keep working on that. I'll let you know when I see you. Deal?
Deal.
Okay. So, but it was strange to me why I looked up at this star, and at that instant, that craft that I was seeing passed underneath it, right? Just right. It was instantly at that moment. And I know what this sounds like. It was for me. It was consciously reaching out. Maybe, but that doesn't change what happened. What happened was I looked right at it, like right at it. It was crazy. And if I hadn't looked up, it was only there for 5 seconds because it immediately went under the clouds. Okay. Did you send me the video?
I was trying to, and then everything went to pot here. I have no idea what happened.
Okay. Did you find out about the 23rd?
No, because I was trying to make sure I got back in because
okay. All right.
I'm working on that. I'm still
all
working
right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Marc. Let's not stress out. How do you let's get into the propulsion side of this. So let's get into the hypothetical or theoretical side of things.
Okay.
If something, and I know you thought about this a lot. So if some civilization out there has the ability to get around and to move around, and I'm going to pull a rough number up. Let's just say the distance is 10,000 light years. Andromeda is a long ways away, right? So to go from Andromeda to here, how would you do that?
Well,
without, okay. So how do you think they are doing it?
Well, there's a few things to consider. First of all, that's intergalactic. I mean, we have minimally 150 billion stars here, of which potentially 20% have planets in the habitable zone. There are more planets than stars in the universe. That we know. Think about that. Let that sink in.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, there are more planets around these tiny little M stars, which are stars only a little bit bigger than Jupiter. Okay. It makes more sense to talk about Jupiter and its moons than these tiny stars and their planets, and then the sun and our planets. Okay. The sun and our planets don't really figure in because that's immense scale. Every one of the planets in the habitable zone around one of these tiny red stars I'm talking about, they're called M-type dwarfs.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the planets is closer to that star than Mercury is to our sun. And of those, there's one, the TRAPPIST-1 system. There's 3 planets in there that are in the habitable zone where liquid water can exist on the surface. Okay, so that's interesting of itself. Now, so what I'm getting at is that there's plenty of options, plenty of chances for alien life to advance, come to a higher technological standard than us. They only have to have existed for maybe 1,000 years longer than us to be able to apply the universe. We're about 300 years from being able to go interstellar in a relatively normal way, maybe 400 years. And it will depend on fusion reactors. It'll depend on some other things like CERN is doing right now, actually. That's important. So where we are, we were stopped a whole bunch of times. We were stopped nearly 5 times on our planet by major extinction events. Progression of life, in other words, was slowed way down. Several of those were biodiversity failures. 2 of them were impact events so far that we know, potentially. And one of them, back 252 million years ago, was a massive volcanic eruption. At least that's the reigning theory over an impact. And that set life back by destroying 97% of life on the planet. 97%. And the creatures back then that were becoming superior and reaching the top of their niches were pre-mammals, the things that would become us, potentially. They were set back, and the creatures at that time that said, oh, this warming because the planet raised its temperatures by 21 degrees Celsius, okay, at that time, that 21 degrees of temperature rise led to another creature, another genre, another niche opened up for these creatures. This is the dinosaurs, and that's when the age of the dinosaurs began. So because of that extinction event, dinosaurs came about and ruled for over 120 some odd million years. And then they disappeared at the next impact event, which set back life, obviously, to 76% of all life was destroyed at that point. So it's like start, stop, reverse, start, stop, reverse, start, stop, reverse. And I asked the question, where would we be had none of that happened? The answer is, of course, we would be much more advanced. We may very well, had dinosaurs never rose to the top of the evolutionary ladders, we would have been more advanced potentially. So maybe we would have joined the galactic club sooner, right? So, and they would only need to be in advance of us by about 1,000 years to see interstellar technology possible. But imagine if they were ahead of us by literally 1 million years. That is something we can't even comprehend, because where we are now and where we were 100 years ago is almost too hard to comprehend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2 different things, 2 different worlds.
Right.
100 years ago versus now. It's hard to believe. Okay, we're in 2026.
Yeah.
But let's say if you go to 1900, 125 years ago, horse and buggy.
I know.
Right? And here's the trickier thing for me and for you. 69 years later, Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
How do you go from gas lamps and horse and buggies, right? 6 decades, man. Right?
Agreed.
To Led Zeppelin? How walking on the moon? How wow. Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, it is a night and day situation.
We do this and then jump up again and jump up again and do this. Sometimes we do that, but then we do that, But our progression in technology, a lot of it came through war, unfortunately, and developments in war to do better and beat the other side. I mean, that was a lot of what it was. And I'm not a real historian. That's actually my son's whole world. He's kind of a World War II historian. He found pictures of my dad in World War II, okay, doing different things on different ships. And I got a photo from Frank Capra that took a picture of my dad. Who knew? He did. He found it out. He found all these pictures. It's really cool stuff. But the question is, even back then, World War II, the P-51 Mustang, excellent aircraft, right? Beautiful plane, that Rolls-Royce Merlin, and the way it sounded. Oh yeah, pinnacle of technology at the time. And then along comes the jet aircraft, and now the Mustang is like a putt-putt car. Now it's flown at air shows in Reno. It's actually now an air show oddity. Oh, look at the World War II aircraft. That's cool. With no clue as to its history, where it came from, and what it meant, and how it progressed in technology. So little things like that. So the technology, it moves, and then we kind of lose sight of how far we've come and what it costs to get there. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important. And I really find this to be fascinating. And so it wouldn't have taken much for our history to have been very different. Now, would it? If Oppenheimer didn't live, or if Einstein, died of pneumonia as a kid. I mean, a lot of our technology.
Newton ran into trouble.
Yes, if Isaac Newton didn't,
right?
Yeah, exactly. If Galileo fell off the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Copernicus, yeah. Copernicus had a bad toothache that resulted in some infection. Then none of this is a conversation today. But are we too fixated? I'm talking about scientists, not us in our community. We have no problems with using our imagination. But are those theoretical physicists too fixed on the known laws of physics, right? Where everything is about lighting a candle and pushing something through space, when if it's a million years in front of us, that's not how they're doing it. And nobody wants to think outside of the box.
That is correct. That's correct. I apologize for we've had some bad weather here, so
lost him again. Mark, what am I going to do with you? Okay, get it reset. If you can hear me, I think he can hear me. I'm going to pull you out, get it reset. I can see you here. Okay, I can see you here. Get it reset again. It's really funny. I've done enough shows now, everybody, and you've been here. You can tell when something, things just start to slow down. You see a couple little glip, and then the feed is interrupted, and that's what's going on there. So we'll get Mark back in. But that's one of the things, everybody, that Mark is resetting now, that we all talk about and wonder, right? There are craft, there are civilizations out there that are probably building large star cruisers, and are so what I was just saying, Mark, is there are probably, because there's infinite civilizations out there, there are civilizations with giant star cruisers with engines on the back, and they're spending, generational ships, just doing whatever.
Possibly,
yeah. That's out there. But then there's the other aspect where it's way beyond where our imagination goes. Our imagination doesn't go far enough to what level of technology we're probably dealing with some of these civilizations.
I'm with you on that. I agree with that 100%. I think that most likely what's happening out there is that civilizations are utilizing other technologies that we're only thinking of. In 1994, Miguel Alcubierre came up with that Alcubierre drive. It's sort of the warp drive. And that was a big deal because it was like Star Trek. Everybody called it the warp drive, like Star Trek. That's not what it was. But still, it was a very interesting, metaphor for Star Trek and so forth. Well, that's all interesting. But, that would like compress space in front of the craft and extend space behind the craft. And thus, you're basically pulling the universe past you as fast as you can muster with the energy you can generate. But that was something that would allow us to get to, say, Alpha Centauri in 5 days. That would be incredible. That would be monumental, because right now it would take us 10 to 12,000 years to get there, right? But it might take us only about 5 days. So you say, what a savings, incredible. That's our new space race. Maybe, but there's something even better. There was a physicist at Stanford that calculated using this other technology where we have to dive into string theory. Okay. Now you have all these guitars behind you. Okay. Now you can understand string theory because of all the guitars behind you. And I bet you're wondering why I'm saying that, maybe. You know,
I'm not wondering at all. Keep going.
Okay. Okay. Because when we talk about string theory, you got to say, well, what's the string? Well, you think of a guitar string, and when you pluck it, it makes a sound. That sounds at a certain pitch. Okay. That corresponds to a certain standing wave that's created, you know, a wave that's moving in resonance uniformly along the string for a period of time. You fret it at somewhere else, you like higher up the neck, and you can get an A, you can get a C, you can get a C major, you can get C minor, you know, all these different notes. Those are different modes that the string can be. That one string can play many different notes. Well, in string theory, there's umpteen trillions upon trillions of strings out there. Maybe they're not being plucked. And what do I mean by plucked? Well, if there is a localized ripple on the strings in string theory, we get a particle like an electron or a proton or a neutron or a muon or a gluon or a so-on, right? Whatever. So
dependent on the vibration of that filament.
Exactly so. And so what that does for us is something that the standard model of physics can't do, that affords us the ability to use other dimensions. Now, in the standard model, we have X, Y, and Z and time. If you consider time a dimension, there's 4 dimensions. But I think you might also find that there's a 5th dimension that we can actually utilize of the 10 or even 11 dimensions. There's a 5th dimension, and that was found by a woman named Randall and a guy named Sundram. And Randall Sundram, the first methodology, Randall Sundram 1, RS1 as it's called, talks about 4 dimensions, X, Y, Z, moving through time, and then a 5th dimension. And it just focuses on that. And so if you think about this 5th dimension, you say, well, okay, well, now what is it? How do we get to it? And that requires a little bit of a background, and that is you look at the fundamental forces. Okay, we have in quantum mechanics, don't worry, it's not a quantum class, gang. We have the strong force, the weak force, electromagnetic force, which is light, and then gravity. Okay, the first 3, yeah, the standard model covers those pretty well. We can understand those, and all of the particles in those first 3, electrons, protons, etc., you can describe them both as a particle and as a wave. They have duality. Duality is hugely important. You can describe an electron with a wave equation. You can describe a proton with a wave equation. You can describe them as particles. Light can be described as a photon or a wave. It acts like both, and so do these particles. Gravity, on the other hand, yeah, gravity's not represented in the standard model. That's left out. How about that? We can calculate what it can do to us. We can calculate the force. We can get all the way outside the solar system very precisely with the Voyager spacecrafts, both of which left the solar system, very precisely. We can actually get to Mars and land rovers on Mars and
with Newton's equations.
That's
what's even crazy.
And Kepler's equations.
Yeah, okay. Kepler. Yeah.
So using that, okay, and the force of gravity is what's called GMM over R squared. G is the gravitational constant, capital M, little m, the big mass, the little mass, Earth and Moon, say, and then the radius between them. So you calculate the forces, and based on that, that's so elementary, that will get you places using that gravity. That's how we got the James Webb Telescope to go right to that perfect Lagrange point, that parking spot in space, where it just tools around a little figure 8, configuration, sitting out there 1 million miles away from Earth, taking these fabulous, amazing photos. So that said, now you've got all this happening in the 4 dimensions. And so to get to Pluto, in traveling in the 4 dimensions, it took us 10 full years to get to Pluto. Now, it just seems so crude to me and so primitive that it took us 10 years to get to another planet in our solar system, albeit the furthest one. And yes, it's a planet. Okay.
Yeah. No argument. No argument.
My SkyTour LiveStream shirt, and on the back it says, "I need my space," and it shows all the planets, including Pluto. One of our very popular shirts. So that said, when you look at travel in our solar system, or let's say in interstellar space, what are we limited by? We're limited by the speed limit of the universe, which is,
the speed limit of the universe.
That's
We're
right.
still calculating that. Don't say the speed of light, because that's bullshit.
Well, the speed of light limits us in our 4 dimensions.
Right. See, that's what I was saying earlier, Mark. The known laws of physics.
That's right.
And the speed of light is this, and the speed of light isn't the same, man. It's not. It changes too.
It does. It varies in different materials. The speed of light in a vacuum is the one we care about. You're absolutely right. Okay. Now, 186,282 miles per second, 7 times around the Earth in a second, if you could muster it. Okay. Yep. Now, even at that fantastical speed, it would still take us 10,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri.
That's right.
The nearest star. Who wants that? So you need another way out, man. You need another way out. So what's the other way out? The other way out is to utilize, say, maybe another dimension. And we can't get to any other dimensions in our 4 dimensions, our standard model. We can't. There's no other dimensions available. We can't see them. Okay. It's a scale problem and an energy issue. We can't see the other dimensions. So if we start looking at the universe differently as strings, these little vibrational strings, now it affords us the ability to use these extra dimensions, including that 5th dimension. And what's that do for you? What's that thumb do for you? Interesting that we have 5 fingers and we have 4 dimensions plus the 5th. I like that. That's kind of a built-in analogy.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah. So you consider that 5th dimension now, all right? What does that do for you? When you enter the 5th dimension, the way that theoretically it's constructed is that it's a highly exponential. That means really compressed. The further in you go, the more compressed it is, the smaller the universe becomes around you. Okay? That's the way it is. That's the design, the concept. Now, if that's the case, then that means that if you can travel into that 5th dimension by far enough, you can then move a tiny little bit in that 5th dimension. And that tiny little bit will correspond to a massive amount of compressed universe you've just crossed. And so when you come out to where that new position you went to really is, you could be light years away from where you just were.
But but what kind of energy is needed?
I was glad you asked that, because I was coming to that. The energy required to do it is the energy required to create a certain type of particle. And that certain type of particle is called a Kaluza-Klein particle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interesting about KK particles is that CERN overseas spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build a detector on the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC. And one of the things that detector is doing is curiously looking for Kaluza-Klein particles. I wonder why. Because they're very interesting and could spell the difference between staying earthbound and going interstellar. And at the same time, let's come back across the Atlantic, across the United States, go to San Francisco, and go to Lawrence Livermore. Mm-hmm. What are they doing that can actually dovetail all the way across the world of what's happening at the LHC? They're looking at fusion, aren't they? And fusion, they've succeeded in making a sustained fusion reaction. They're not breaking even. They're putting in way more energy than they're getting out, but they're sustaining it. Okay, little victories, little steps. So once we can actually get to the point where we can produce energy like the sun does, now we have the ability to create enough energy, to answer your question, enough energy to create these particles. And if we can create these particles, we can handle them in such a way that we can move ourselves into that 5th dimension and utilize this new travel methodology. This is something that is Not just Marc D'Antonio. This is Robert Schroeder, who wrote the book Solving the UFO Enigma, a good friend of mine. This is Avi Loeb.
One of the best interviews I've ever done was with him.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah. He talked all about this, I'm sure.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And then,
okay. Let's back up. Let's back up to string theory.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Nobody working on string theory today, both directly and indirectly, and I'm talking about Brian Greene all the way down, don't know shit. That's correct. They don't. Anybody that wants to comment on string theory, I'm not here to break hearts, but string theory, to get to a theory of everything, we have to understand everything else to get that theory resolved. And right now, we are a little pinprick of knowledge to what is out there. And so we have to reverse and look to get to that idea of string theory. This is, in my opinion, with all of the AI, with all of the supercomputers, with all of the big brains on this planet, I'm saying 2,000 years. That's how long. String theory right now is an idea, but to get to it and to resolve and to finish string theory, it's 2,000 years from now. Nobody knows. Brian Greene will tell you himself, it ain't going to happen in my lifetime or my grandchildren's. It's not. All we can do is work on it. So that's the problem. I don't disagree that it's definitely a major puzzle. You're right about that. Now, the other thing is, do we need a theory of everything?
Well, grand unified theory is kind of a major thing, and here's why. The standard model talks about those fundamental forces and fundamental physics, but then quantum mechanics talks about other forces and other things. And the problem is the standard model and quantum mechanics don't really work that well together. And the problem is with that we don't have a theory of everything. We want to unify all that. But maybe the unification is going to be through eventual use of or understanding of string theory. We're thinking about it wrong. I think we're thinking about physics wrong and always have. And I think that if we go, and this, there are people that say, well, I believe in the electric universe. Well, guess what? Light is an electric field and a magnetic field together. All right. So are they wrong about that? Well, no. Everything we have ever learned is by studying light, which is an electric field and a magnetic field. So clearly the electric universe has a huge effect in that regard. Now, not the electric universe as people talk about it, because that's still just a theory. But I will say that we look at some supernova remnants, and they have these tendrils in them, these spinning tendrils that look like they've spun up. They move so slow. And one of the theories is that electricity is doing it. Conduction within there from the ions that are in there, the charged particles are actually causing that. So electrical interaction might be causing the shapes of some of these things, and that is pretty cool. Now, so
I agree.
So the electric universe is not wrong necessarily, is my point.
Yeah. I love the electric universe idea, and I am all for dreaming, thinking, pondering, and discovering. That's the only way that we move forward. We correct the past, all the science. You know what I mean? It's just all one series of corrections. And if you're a scientist, you got to have thick skin, because somebody's going to come along and prove you wrong and advance things.
Exactly.
And that's all it is. But to have the place that we are at now, we're good. And we're moving forward. We're not that far away from where we were 400 years ago. And I'm talking about Copernicus and Galileo and Isaac Newton, where suddenly, and if you really think about it, the Greeks were talking about quantum mechanics and atoms, you know, at year zero. And that's pretty fascinating when you think about it. We had a pretty good dreamscape, right? We're dreaming and we're thinking about these things. So where we are today, I don't know if we would understand ET when they get here and they explain to us how they did it. I don't think our physicists and theoretical physicists would understand their, you know what I mean?
I do. In fact,
I don't know. I think it's just way above our knowledge base right now.
it's sort of above our pay grade, I guess, you know. And the way to think about this too is look at the U.S. Navy. My experience with, I've never been a sailor. In fact, I got seasick on a submarine where it's a cylinder with end caps rocking and rolling.
Oh, that sucks. I couldn't
God.
do it. Yeah.
I didn't like it. I loved it. It was the most fun I had getting seasick. I'll say that. But you go to sea for a few days in a submarine, and you very quickly realize, wow, there's literally no place to get relief in here if you're seasick. You know. However, I will say this. You know, everybody listening and watching right now. When you're underwater, it feels like you feel right now, unless you're driving a car. It feels totally still. You can't tell you're moving, and that's the beauty of being underwater. Okay. When you're on the surface, though, nobody told me they were going to stay on the surface for over 100 miles. And it's like, oh, and that did me in, man. There's no windows. I was hanging on the sky periscope, just looking out of the periscope, thinking I can see a horizon. I'm okay. I won't get. Oh, I'm getting sick anyway. Because when you take your eyes off it, now the passageways are doing this, and your brain is going, "What's happening, man?" You know? It's like the weirdest thing. So that's why I sat with the sonar guy, and that's when after we got underwater, it was calm. And that's when they saw that unknown submerged object zip by the sub several hundred miles an hour, you know, and that blew me away.
The not to change the subject, but I want to go back to Alcubierre because he said that he went back and looked at his equations and had to rethink his ideas about it because
that's right.
It would take up the energy of the known universe, right?
Yep.
To do this. And that's when I stopped. I'm going to see, he's got it wrong. The idea is a good one. It's foundational and it's fundamental. It's a great idea. To then give up because it would take too much energy. No. Well, then figure out the energy process because it's got to be super, super simple.
Yeah, well, think about this. You're absolutely right about that. Now, Froning was another physicist, and the Froning Alcubierre drive is the one that is now the one that they would actually make. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let's look at the energy requirements. The energy requirements, yes, exactly, to make a single warp bubble. Now, what's the warp bubble? Okay. The warp bubble is made of something called exotic matter, negative energy density. Now, what the hell does that mean? Okay, it just means that it's a special construct so that when you're moving through space this way, stuff coming at your warp bubble is going to serve to compress space in front of you, and stuff going away from your warp bubble is going to serve to push it faster away and make it a farther distance. So that means you compress the distance you're going to get to, and you push away the distance you were just at. So you basically accelerate through the universe differently.
You're not moving.
That's correct. The universe is moving past you, which is one of those constructs you have to get used to. Now, with this fifth dimensional travel stuff, there is no movement at all. Now, wait a minute. What do you mean? What it means is you literally disappear from this point and reappear at this point without traveling the space in between those 2 points. That's because you leave these 4 dimensions. Boop, you're gone. You're in the 5th dimension. Then, boop, you punch in at a new spot over here. That punch out, punch in methodology is exactly what this technology would accomplish for us. Now, there's so much left unsaid, so much left undiscovered, so much technology left unbuilt and unfound that we're not there yet. However, the theory is good. Now let's go back to Alcubierre for a minute. Alcubierre.
Mm-hmm.
So the Alcubierre drive, all right, needed all this energy. Now Sonny White at EagleWorks Laboratories, you familiar with Sonny White?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Well, he actually tried to help Miguel with this because they reformulated the shape of the torus that would generate the warp bubble. That reformulation changed the amount of energy required.
This was a big deal, actually.
It was a big deal because it went from being a thought problem that would be put on the shelf and thought, wow, that's pretty cool, but we could never possibly build it, ha, 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 to now being something distantly plausible. It went from the mass of the universe to the mass of Jupiter converted to energy using, let's say, the mass equivalence equation that Einstein, right? E equals mc squared. That's the non-light speed version of that equation. All right. Well, after Sonny got a hold of it, he actually reduced that down even more by 10 to the 26th power. Even so, now it was the mass of the Voyager spacecraft. Now it was distantly plausible to do that. Okay. So that said, that was a major change from what it was to what it became. And that's good. That's why minds are smart. That's why people, go to school for many years to learn this stuff. And then they dig in, they stay there, they go bald. They never, have a social life. And then they come up with theories that change the world. And that's kind of what they do. Some of them. So that said, the energy requirements changed. And so the Alcubierre drive is not completely off the table. However, it's not good enough because 5 days to Alpha Centauri, to the nearest star, 4.3 light years away, 4, not 40, not 1,000, not good enough. We got to do better. So how do we do better? We do better by being able to punch out from where we are in this particular XYZ coordinate, go into that fifth dimension. All right. I say go into it. That's the whole terminology that's wrong there, but it's you have to just take it on face value for now. So once you're in the fifth dimension, you can then have a new entry point, all right, that corresponds to that little tiny distance you traveled in the fifth dimension. And that could be 1,000 light years away from where you just were, or it could be at the moon. Theoretically, within maybe 1,000 years, you'll hear someone say, "Hey, honey, I'm going to go to the moon with Bob. We're going to have lunch, and we'll be back by 3."
Yeah, well, of course we will.
Yeah,
and this is, if you take where we are today, and trust me, we are trailer park trash, right? Planet Earth, right? But if you take where we are today with our technology, and you go back just 150 years, you just said 1,000. We go back 150 years, and we tell people, "Yeah, man. So this is what we do for dinner. We call ahead to the restaurant that's 40 miles away. We jump in our car." And we arrive at the restaurant and we pick up the food and then we drive back. It takes us about 30 minutes, right? Well, what kind of voodoo black magic stuff are you suggesting? Because they would call BS, right?
Yeah.
Stop it, right? Well, and then we laugh at that. Why do we do that today? Why do we have the ability with microwave ovens and cooking food instantly and driving to a drive-in restaurant? Why? Because it's easy. We don't think about it in those terms. Hey, Mark, you want to go? Chili dogs right now? We can be back in 15 minutes. Yeah, man, let's go. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because it's easy. And you jump in the car or have it delivered. Even crazier, right?
Even crazier beyond that, Jimmy. I'm going to go order something on Amazon and then go stand in my front yard when it's delivered by drone.
Yeah, and catch it. Yeah.
I was in Arizona. I was in Arizona recently, working on the observatories, and as I'm driving through on the highway, I think on the 202. I'm driving through and I see this really strange aircraft go through the sky. Now, me, of course, see that right away. I was like, what is that? Right. I realize that's an Amazon drone. you know, and it goes back, it hovers over its little station, and then it drops back down under you know, around the fences, so no one can tamper with it. Unbelievable. That's pretty cool, you know. And it's like,
have you seen the Odyssey yet?
no, I haven't seen the Odyssey.
Go and see it.
I'm looking.
But last night I watched a documentary by Christopher Nolan about making the movie, and it's exactly what you and I are talking about right now. When you think, you go back to the if you go back to the movie directors, you know, in 1930, you know, out there trying to make films, and what Christopher Nolan did, right, where, you know, he's filming at a castle in Italy, you know, bringing drones in and helicopters with the camera gear and dropping it and shooting in IMAX on the top of this mountain for a day or two. They built the base camp and then helicopter everything out down to the ships, and they take off. That is crazy that we are in that kind of position where we can just do what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Let's just drone this stuff in.
Yeah. Remember when the speed of sound was something that we couldn't possibly go through because the plane would blow up and hit a wall?
Broke the record right down the street from me, man.
Right.
Chuck Yeager.
That's why I
the Dry Lake bag at Edwards, right up the street.
Yep.
I've been at the end of that runway, by the way.
Yeah, that's a long runway.
It's a long runway. Yeah, it's right there too, man. You could drive right up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, how far we have gone. So it's got to be easy for ET. It's got to be. You know, they're in Alpha Centauri or Zeta or Andromeda. Hey, honey, I want an In-N-Out burger from Earth. Let's go. We can be back in a few minutes before the kids are home from school.
And while we're there, we're going to probe Eric Cartman, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We'll do a little science. You know,
do you think that the wormhole idea is all cool, but, you know, I always kind of dig the Frank Herbert take on things. You know, the mind control Dune, you know, the spice and folding space.
Third, yeah. Well, if you think about it, the technology that they might be utilizing in that, yes, it's fanciful. You know, Navigator third stage, really cool stuff. I love that idea. Okay, the spice must flow. You know, I love it. But I look at that. When I look at that and how they travel, it seems like they're using RS1, Randall Syndrome 1. They're looking at this punch in, punch out technology. The same thing I'm talking about. You know,
except Herbert thought that up 75 years ago.
Yeah, well, actually, the Kaluza-Klein phenomena was invented in the 20s.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, Kaluza and Klein came up with this. Kaluza first and Klein second, and they Klein finished it actually. And this was in 1920 that they came up with it. And, you know, and is the concept so far out of reach? No. CERN spent $100 million to build a detector to look for these particles specifically. This is so neat. Now, I feel like, you know, we're on the cusp, James. We're on the cusp of some new technology that's going to come into use. And I have a feeling that...
what do you know? What do you know?
We may
what
not...
do you know?
Well, what I know is that this technology is really under intense scrutiny. And because it's at CERN, it's many nations involved in this. And so we're probably not going to find one nation that's going to hold on to the technology.
Well, we do have 5 colliders in the United States.
Yeah, but the Large Hadron Collider is...
Well, yeah, I know the LHC is the LHC. I get that, but
it's the one that has the Atlas detector on it, and that's the big thing that's important.
Yeah. But my point being, CERN is shut down for the next 4 years. That's not stop. And the colliders that we have here in the United States are ours on our property.
I don't think they're sufficient to do the kind of research into the Kaluza-Klein particles that the Large Hadron Collider is capable of doing.
But you just mentioned it though. At Lawrence Livermore, we're working on fusion, and
we are.
We have another collider outside of Chicago. We've got one in New York.
Yeah.
You know, and that the research is ongoing, and those are the ones that we know about. By the way,
we had a linear accelerator at my university, for instance. You know, so I used to go down there a lot with the chief physicist on the projects down there. You know, they don't look like much, you know, to anybody from the outside world. The underground big rings, those are different though. Now those you got to like get in a golf cart or even a bicycle to drive around the ring, but you never do it while it's running. You only do it when it's off, you know, not being used. And the problem is that, you know, you're accelerating these particles in a circle. And how you doing that? You're doing it by taking magnetic fields and constraining them to go in a circle by using magnetic fields. And they don't want to do that. When you do that, they give off radiation called synchrotron radiation. And synchrotron radiation is dangerous. We're not healthy. And, you know, if you look at UFOs, I think they're giant accelerators. I think they're particle accelerators. Outer ring, okay, dispenses these particles. Those particles are the Kluser-Klein particles, and they will, those particles literally exist in a different dimension. They don't come from our 4 dimensions. They actually exist in the 5th dimension. And if we create them here, we sort of mingle the 5th dimension with our 4 dimensions, and therefore are in the 5th dimension. This is sort of the mental device you use to try and figure this out. And when you're in that 5th dimension, now you can, the farther in you go, the more energy you use from your fusion reactor, which by the way is what you need to power such a thing. The more particles you generate from your collisional excitation, and the more you can actually get into that 5th dimension, and the more you can then you know, go places. We'll probably go out of our minds when we can go from Earth to Earth orbit in a 12-second jump. You know, that'll probably, wow, you know, that'll be crazy. And again, small baby steps, right?
Right,
You know,
right,
like
right.
from Earth to
Well,
Moon.
okay, so let's absorb the last 2 hours on the show, and if I could compress this into a sentence, what you are suggesting is this: that string theory and vibrations and the creation of particle is determined by the frequency of the vibration of the filament, and that, okay, and we have so many known particles in our part of the universe. If that's the case, then physics and types of particles can be different anywhere, right?
No.
And well, wait a minute, the Higgs boson we just found.
Yeah,
that's a new, right. That particle wasn't theoretically.
It was always there. We just could never find it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So to say that right now, this is all that there's plenty more to be discovered.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going.
And so I mean, ET is dealing with particles and physics that we haven't discovered yet.
Possibly true. I see where you're going. I misunderstood where you're going there.
No, you said it all. I'm just repeating.
I know, but I misinterpreted my own words. Let's put it that way. Like when you look at a guitar string, it can only play a certain number of notes. You can't get any more notes out of it than a certain number of notes. Yes, you can do pitch bends and things like that, but those are all within a framework of its capability. It can't do anything outside the capability. Now, what would that be? Well, you know, if you're using like one of your bass strings and you're playing a really deep note, you're not going to get that same deep note, that same resonance that you're going to get. You're not going to get that on a tiny E string on a guitar, right? You're not going to get that because it can't do it. It's not capable. So in the universe, there's all kinds of guitar strings, basically. All right, and they are not just, there's not just 5 of them. There's going to be, you know, trillions and trillions. And what happens is, even if no note is being played, the string is still there. That's the key point. And so in this particular understanding, when there's a let's call it a ripple in this particular part of space, the ripple will be of a characteristic wave, a characteristic height, amplitude, so to speak, and that will create the proton. And another ripple will create an electron. That's where string theory goes with this. It's like there's ripples.
Totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, ripples in space-time kind of a thing. And that's the thing. It's going to take a fundamental change to how we understand physics, because we can't touch gravity right now.
No,
We only
no.
just found out
Gravity's the
it's
biggest
away.
mystery of all.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. No, man. I've asked quite a few physicists this question and they can't answer it. So I'm going to ask you. Okay.
I don't think I'll be
Let's
different.
accept string theory fundamentally. Okay,
Okay.
let's just accept it for what it is. All right. What's the smallest, Mark? What's the smallest thing that we know of right now?
In our current standard model?
Just what's the smallest thing that we know of?
Well, theoretically, there's a string. I mean, close to the Planck length, but we also, that's theoretical, but we know about quarks, which make up protons.
Stop. That's it.
Stop.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay. So what are those strings made of?
Energy. That's the idea. Energy, yes. Energy at a different vibrational frequency. An electron is different fundamentally from a proton, but all electrons look the same.
So, well, are you going to go with the one electron theory right now, single electron? Are you going there?
No.
It's
I'm
not
just
a bad
saying-
argument, actually. It's not a bad argument.
I'm just saying that just like all windows that we look at are made of glass. Okay, all glass. There's quartz, right? Kind of quartz like that. There's variations, but in the same way, the electron is a fundamental particle, and it's the same no matter what. We don't treat this electron.
They are all identical.
They have characteristics. They have spin, right? You have the spin up.
They're
spin
all
down.
identical. Yeah, they're all identical. So the idea that for everybody that's listening right now, the idea, the thought experiment is maybe there's just one. Maybe there's just one electron. And it's fun to it's too much for the mind to handle, but it's an interesting theory. But going back to this, something makes up those strings, and then something is inside of whatever's making that up, and it goes deeper and
You
deeper.
can go deeper and deeper until your mind explodes.
Everything just divides in half and divides in half.
Yeah, it reminds you of the Powers of 10. Fantastic little short video.
Such a good book.
It is. I used to teach. I teach that in classes. It's just, so the point is, we get to a certain point where we can't see anything that's divisible. Now, basically, understand that the standard model of physics doesn't allow us to see the small dimensions because they're too small. We can't see those with our standard model within our standard physics. If you go into string theory, we can see what should be there once we can prove it. Ask Michio Kaku, who'll tell you string theory is the only game in town. Okay. But the point is, those dimensions are so small. It's a problem of scale and of energy. We can't detect them with our standard model. Doesn't mean they're not there.
Can't detect it. It's all in the math. It's all in the math. I don't know if we'll ever see it. I got to ask you the basic question before I get you out of here. By the way, Mark, I love you, man. Great conversation tonight.
Great time. Sorry about these dropouts, man. Anyway,
it's whatever. So I've had so many.
You're never going to look at a guitar string the same way again. Huh?
No, believe me, string theory has messed up all of my guitar playing. Is this? What do you make of your buddy Neil deGrasse Tyson flipping on the UFO subject?
Well, I'll tell you this. It was about maybe 8 or 9 years ago when Neil deGrasse Tyson sent me a LinkedIn request. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh, that's baloney. That's not really him." And I just let it for 3 months. I let it go, and then I got a repeat. NGT, still waiting for your response. So I started looking at the profile, trying to see if it was really him or just like a fanboy or a fan club. It was him, and I just accepted it. And it turns out that NGT follows what I'm doing. He follows what other people in the arena are doing, and his comment 10 years ago would have been, I don't believe they're there. No, the universe is vast. They couldn't possibly get here. Okay. But now, what's he say? Well, I just need more data. He's hedging his bets because he knows that there's probably a flip side to what he's been thinking all these years. And to his credit, he's not taking it to the wall and saying, no, they're not here. He's saying that he thinks that he just needs more data. That's just short of saying they might be here. What he'll admit, though, and he will say this, he believes they're out there, but he doesn't believe necessarily that they're here. He needs more data for that. That's a big change for him.
Yeah, I'm okay with him. What I mean by that is, so many right now are very critical of what he has said in the past and how he's teased this community, and it's deep-seated mental problems and blah 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 blah, right? Okay, but I think it takes a lot to admit that you're okay with learning something new. And that's a big step, man. That's a huge, especially in his arena,
He
his
knows.
skeptical arena that he runs in, to suddenly go, you know what? These military guys, man, I've got to say, they're professional witnesses. They're seeing the scientists. They're seeing the data is showing. So, yeah, for him to, compared to what he was doing 10 years ago or last year, right? I think it's okay. Maybe it's just the finger in the dike kind of thing, that this is getting ready to explode, and maybe we'll see the rest of science come right along with them.
Well, I think that if I put my finger in any dike, I'd probably have it be like a microscope, and I'd be staring at the water on the other side, the vast quantity that I know is there. That's why I wrote the book, The Populated Universe, right? The subtext is life in the universe may very well be the rule, not the exception. And I make the case for life all throughout the universe based on the fundamental observations we make and the chemistry we see out there.
We got 90 seconds. Here's the thing with what you just said. It seems that every random space rock we touch has got proteins and amino acids and RNA and DNA on it, right?
Yeah, well,
this is just what's near us.
Yeah. We've had stuff fall on the Earth with amino acids. We have the Earth making amino acids. The Miller-Urey experiment in the early 50s. Okay, Stanley Miller, Harold Urey. After a week of just bombarding a primordial atmosphere concoction, they found amino acids in the bottom of it, and then years later, they looked at them again with better technology and found 22 more amino acids that were never found in the first place. So the Earth makes the building blocks of life. The building blocks of life are delivered to the planet. The universe creates templates for life. That I put that in the book too. I talk about that. That's important. And we can't ignore that. So and we're carbon based. That's the fourth most abundant element in the whole universe. Fourth. Guess what's third? Oxygen. Yeah. So carbon and oxygen, good thing it's not this finger. Carbon and oxygen, okay, are actually the most important elements in the whole periodic table when it comes to life, and they're the ones most supplied by the whole universe. So life is probably carbon-based, and therefore, if it's a carbon-based alien life, they're going to need oxygen. So what are they going to look for? Oxygenated atmospheres, just like we are. And they're going to find it.
You're right. And here... okay, we're now off of the network, but that doesn't matter. Listen, I'm speaking to you, but I want the audience to listen to me for a second. We are carbon-based, and the way that carbon works, it bonds really easily with stuff.
Everything. It
Right,
breaks
right.
and makes
It bonds easily.
Yeah.
So we breathe in oxygen, exhale carbon,
dioxide. Yeah,
right? Carbon dioxide, right? Silicon. And when people bring that up, wait a minute, they don't get it. Yes, same kind of construct, but it doesn't bond with anything.
Well, it does.
If
but
you
it
did
makes
what,
nature bond.
and it's not a tight bond, by the way, it's a loose bond. It's a bond that can be broken. But here's the thing: so if you did have a silicon life form and they are breathing in, what are they breathing out? Sand.
Well,
Yeah, they're going to exhale sand.
silicon dioxide is sand, and actually, that's something that people can now do when they walk on a beach. They can look at their friend and say, "Hey, you're walking on mostly gas," and they'd be right. Right?
Marc D'Antonio, you're the best, my friend. Thank you so much. And
Thanks, man.
you need anything, you know what to do. All right. Always
Yeah,
great
man.
to have you on the show.
I love hanging with you. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you to all your audience. You guys are fun.
Where can everybody go check out Sky Tours Live?
SkyTourLive.org, and that's our portal. And we're at SkyTour LiveStream, which you see right here, okay, on YouTube. And we've got over 560 3 to 4 hour live streams of the universe up there. And all the pictures we take are yours for free to take.
You're the best, Mark. Thank you so much, my friend.
See you guys.
Always great. Marc D'Antonio, everybody. His website links are below, over on our website, and throughout social media. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night on the show, Cliff Dunning is here. We're going to talk about ancient civilizations. Yeah, nothing but a great week here on Fade to Black. Thank you, Mark. I'll see everybody right here tomorrow night. But for now, all I've got is Gobekli Tepe. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Gobekli Tepe.